All right, let's roll with the RotoWire Rundown. We're back after a couple of weeks. You know me as Keith Stewart from Read the Line. Of course, I'm with RotoWire's senior golf writer, Len Hochberg. Len, happy Halloween. Before we get to all this golf, I know we've been away for a couple weeks. One quick question for you. What's your favorite piece of candy you got as a kid on Halloween?
Gosh, someone just asked me that about my 10-year-old son, and I said, yes, like everything. It might be the traditional good old American Hershey bar, just plain chocolate, just fill me up.
Well,
How
I'm
about
going to go
yourself?
I'm going to go Kit Kat. And it's not because it's a Tiger week, but I guess we got to get there too. You know, after 16 editions of the Worldwide Technology Championship, say that 3 times fast, right? Over there in Riviera Maya, we're going to go over to the left coast of Mexico, out there in Baja California, Cabo San Lucas, to Diamante's resort community, where there's a couple golf courses, but one in particular we're going to use this week called El Cardonal, and it's designed in 2014 by none other than the big cat himself, Tiger Woods. It looks pretty. It looks like some eye candy out there. I mean, what do you expect this week when we get our first look at a Tiger design golf course on the PGA Tour?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Want to see Tiger's vision. He says on the course website that he built it with in mind of the old style Southern California courses that he grew up playing. I need to get a little more information, but it doesn't seem anything like a Riviera. For one thing, the score should be incredibly low, incredibly wide fairways. Probably only Kapalua would match that. Incredibly large greens, the largest we've ever seen. Really a desert landscape with, a lot of arroyos, and I had to look that up before this week. You may know what that is. So, but it really appears to be easy. You could hit the ball far, and you can get the ball on the green easy. You're going to have to make some putts. I've seen the over-under 23 and a half under par.
You're kidding me. Well, I tell you what, when you look at it, it does seem like there's some scoring on the menu. I guess the big thing for me is that for all these years that Tiger Woods was synonymous with the PGA Tour, I guess over the last 5 or 6, we haven't seen as much of Tiger and everything. And now all of a sudden we're using his golf courses. The TGL makes an announcement like every other 5 minutes about what's happening there. They're partnered with the PGA Tour. Now Tiger has a special seat on the board on the Players Advisory Council. So, I think this is just a sign of kind of the next level of Tiger's involvement in the tour. And in some ways, I think it's kind of cool because when you start to think about how these guys are going to play this golf course and how are they going to get to 24 under par, which is basically what that over under is saying, Len. Like what kind of skills do you see needed as they head into El Cardinal?
Well, it's about 7,500 yards, traditional par 72, 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s, a lot of long holes. But like I said, the fairways are super wide. So I think we're just going to try and pound the ball off the tee and try and get there, point A to point B as quickly as possible. The greens are huge. So I think the greens in regulation numbers will go up. Par 5 scoring, anytime you get to 24 under or into the 20s, you're going to have to score the par 5s. You're going to have to make some birdies or birdie them all and maybe eagle a couple of them. So looking at par 5 scoring, looking at birdie or better. I'm looking at the better putters too when you have to make putts. And I think the bigger greens identify the bigger putters. So those are the things that I'm focusing on this week.
Well, you know what? I'm with you. I'm very intrigued to see what Tiger's vision for a golf course is. You go to a Jack Nicklaus golf course, you got a lot of left to right tee shots, you got a lot of fairway bunker shots, you have these kind of crazy quadrantal greens, and Donald Ross always had his, little characteristic of his golf courses, or Fazio, or of course Gil Hanse the same way. So it'll be interesting to me, like what will be Tiger's thing? And when I think about him as an exceptional player, he was the greatest long iron player of all time. And I think sometimes when people think about that, they think about Augusta National and like long par 4s in order to try to, maybe par holes. But what about these 4 par 5s or these long par 4s or these 3 par 3s that are around 200 yards? I think Tiger also thinks of him in a scoring manner. I think he likes power. I think he wants to see these guys really attack this golf course. I'm with you on the par five scoring, but also there's two drivable par fours. So like what's going to happen there from a scrambling perspective? And I think he definitely loves scoring. So for me, I think that the long clubs are really going to determine people's success here, which leads me down the road because before we got to go, I got to get some names from you from a DFS perspective. It's been a couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, the Zozo had a limited field. So it's been 3 weeks since the Shriners, and we've had a full field. And now we've got, the full complement from 10K down to 6K. Who do you have for me? Highlight a couple. Everybody loves the names. Len, give them to me.
Yeah, well, we've got 132 in this field. So it is a full field, but it's a small full field. So pretty much more than half the field will make the cut. So a good week to identify some top names, and don't fear the 6,000s going by DraftKings prices because a lot of those guys are going to make the cut. It's just simple math. Ludwig Aberg right at the top, not the highest ranked guy in the field, but probably playing better than anyone else right now. He still has a lot to play for. 99th in points. He has his card for next year, but still trying to get into the signature events and some of the other big, and maybe the majors for next year as well. Sahith Theegala, really, his big issue is getting the ball in the fairway. Won't be an issue this week. Lucas Glover, I'm looking at. This is the first time we've seen Lucas Glover since the Tour Championship, and the first time we've seen him since his Ryder Cup snub. I think he has a lot to play for. I'll try and go quickly down the others into the 9s and 8s and 7s. JJ Spawn in the 9,000s. In the 8s, Lucas Herbert. Again, another guy can't get the ball in the fairway. Should be able to do it this week. Great putter. In the 7s, Chesson Hadley trying to stay in the top 125. Sam Ryder trying to get into the top 60 the next 10. And in the 6,000s, Kelly Craft, fourth time in a row, Keith. I'm going to talk about him. He's been super gold for us. Top 25s the last 3 times he's been out. In the low 6,000s, he's up to 6,800 this week. Still a very good price. And Carson Young, kind of a late bloomer, 28-year-old rookie, but he's 113th in points. He will keep his card for next year. He has 7 top 25s on the season already.
I got a couple names I want to throw at you. I know that you mentioned, Lucas Glover. You've mentioned Sahith. You've mentioned Ludwig, right? There's a guy, Steven Yeager. He's over $10,000 on DraftKings. Can he possibly live up to that value?
It's one of the hardest things for us in the fall season when the fields are weak is seeing these guys at these prices. Like we would never think of Yeager at $10,000 golfer, but in this field he is, and he certainly merited my consideration. I ended up going a different direction, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him have a good week. He is a $10,000 golfer in this field.
I mean, you have me doing some supermarket shopping. I tell you, I looked down the list, and one of the guys down there in the 6K range, MJ Duffy, right? Bombs the ball, is that did that guy hit your radar at all? Because he hit mine, and I'm always curious to pick your brain a little bit.
He did hit my radar, and I ended up excluding him. And now I'm trying to remember what caused me to. I was doing my article last night, but he was in the final cut. We could put it that way. So, this is not complete science here. There is a little bit of nuance here. So I did notice MJ, and I think that he could certainly be a good play.
Well, hey, Len, yeah, your cut isn't the only cut he's missed in the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, there is reason why, but he was just one of those guys that popped. Now, you talked about Carson Young. For me, when it comes from a betting perspective, at the top of the board, I'm not quite ready to anoint Ludwig yet, but there's another Young that's playing, and he hasn't played since the BMW where he finished the season strong. I think this is a perfect setup for Cam Young. I mean, he bombs the golf ball. His approach game came around during the summer, and we keep talking about the fact that we're down in Mexico or at these coastal golf courses. We haven't mentioned the grass yet, but it's paspalum. It's sticky, it's slow, it's grainy. It tends to have guys that don't never necessarily chip and putt as well, putt better, and above their mean. So I think I like Cam Young at the top of the board. In the middle of the board, I've got my eye on a bomber who was really good when I was out there in Vegas. I saw Taylor Pendrith play a lot of golf. He finished third there. And I tell you what, I was impressed. and this guy absolutely motors it. So for me, in the middle of the board, I'm going bombers the whole way through. But I love that. I love where Taylor Pendrit's game was. He's top 20 in tee to green. He's top 20 in ball striking, and the putter was coming around out there in Vegas. And I got one more for you. I got the Wu-Tang Clan. I can't figure this guy out, but Brandon Wu plays well. I mean, Victor Hovland at once was, the Prince of Paspalum, but he's moved on to an upper echelon. I think Brandon Wu wants the title. 2 years in a row in Mexico at the Mexico Open back there in April. He finishes second and third. And then I also looked, you got to look at Corrales, you got to look at Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, he has a seventh and a third. What's with this? Because he doesn't pop anywhere else, but he gets on Paspalum. He gains like 5 strokes putting. Brandon Wu, like 80-1 on most boards, right? I'm throwing the name around. Maybe that'll drop a little bit, but it might not be a bad DFS play for you. How do you feel about little Brandon Wu this week?
I just like when you say popping on Paspalum. I mean, that sold me right there. That but you're right. It's a different grass. It's down in the Caribbean. A lot of these guys, especially the better guys, they're not playing too much on this tournament, so it might favor some of the lesser guys. And if I can call Brandon Wu a lesser guy compared to some of the big names, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? There's a lot of things we could throw out from a PSA perspective. Paspalum this week is definitely one of them. But I hope that everybody's day pops because it is Halloween. Thanks for joining us for the rundown. Of course, that's Len Hochberg, senior golf writer from RotoWire. I'm Keith Stewart from Read the Line. We will be back again next week. We're going to a whole different ocean, right? We're going to be out in the Atlantic at the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. But in the meantime, enjoy Tiger's course, and we'll see you next week.